Welcome to Define Play, where I interview fascinating people to find out what play means to them. My name is Michael Mirza, and my guest today is Sarah Corley, a senior integrated marketing campaign strategist at Sprout Social. Sarah is also a baker, a water aerobics instructor, a Guinness World Record holder, and a transracial adoptee. We talked about all of these identities coming together and her creativity and thoughtfulness behind all the things she does, and the way that she is generally a person who says yes and moves forward, and how that has served her in her life. So listen for the conversation and think about things in your life where maybe there is an invitation to say yes. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get into it. I have so appreciated getting to know you as a friend in the last few years. Yeah. And there's a few things about you that made me really, really excited to talk to you today. You're incredibly creative, you have an infectious energy, and whether you have great ideas of how our community can hang out, or when other people have great ideas, you are so good at bringing the life to an event, a gathering, a initiative, whatever it is. Yeah. You bring the energy so well. How do those traits of your energy, your creativity, and the way that you join and bring something to life, how do those things show up in your life?
Thank you so much. That makes my heart glow to hear all of those things. I think talking about how I show up and say yes in the friend group, I think we've all experienced in childhood or in our adult life where we've had a really good idea, maybe a funny joke over lunch, and it just kind of falls flat and people are just like, yeah, okay. Or they don't even say anything and it's so awkward. And it's like, if you're really a friend of someone, it's like, why not champion in that idea and then just like take it to the next level? Yes. So our friend Anna, I'm part of a group called the Spice Girls, and perfect. Anna was like, hey, let's do a getaway. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay. And so it's like, we came up with a theme like coastal grandmother. I came up with like all of these like different ideas for names of like the dinners. So there's like live, love, limoncello. There's like chaos and queso and like all these things. But like, I just love to bring those ideas and that energy and know that it's so well received. And I think that speaks very well to like the friend group that we have, is like feeling like I can be my silliest self and know that it's safe.
Yes, yeah. And I've been the recipient of your joining in, and I've been grateful for that. When, we get to go dancing together, we have meals together. So our friendship has lots of these cool connection moments, and many times, no matter where the idea started, you have just been that person to be like, hey, let's go all in. Let's make this as memorable as possible.
Yeah, and I think, there's something interesting there too, is like, so I grew up doing theater, and I was on an improv team for 4, maybe 5 years. Yeah. And one of the things you learn in improv is yes and it's just that idea of just like naturally champion and rolling with an idea and seeing where it takes you. And I think that spontaneity is just so fun.
Yes. Do you still do any kind of theater or acting?
You know what? I haven't done a lot of theater. So when I first moved to Chicago, I was like, I'm going to get into the theater scene. And I moved about a month before COVID happened. And so that kind of like squelched that dream. And I wouldn't say it's over, but it's just not something I'm pursuing right now. But I will tell you, this is actually really funny. When I first moved to Illinois, I was like, I want to be on Chicago Fire. I want to be Chicago PD. Like, I'll be a person in the background, like walking with a baguette bag. Like, I don't know. Like, I just want to be in the background. TV. Yeah, I'm like, I want to do this. Like, I came from a small town. And so I was like, big girl moving to like Illinois, and like there's all this opportunity. And so I found a casting call. Okay. And they were like, hey, we're looking for bakers, people who know social media, people who are good writers. It's for a national baking brand, and if you're interested, you can apply. And I was like, that's me.
Yes.
So I was like, okay.
Check.
Yeah. So I go to the open casting call, and it's in the West Loop at the time. And they open the door, and there's just like hundreds of people. Okay. And I'd never been to an open casting call in my life. I grew up in a small kind of like white rural town. And I was like, wow, I have made it. I was like, this is so cool. And also, I'm literally not going to get this job. There's no way. And I sit down, and the woman who's sitting next to me is like, what casting agency are you with? And I was like, Google? It was literally how I found it. I just Googled it. Yeah. And so anyway, I ended up making it through all of the rounds. They would call me back the next week. It was this huge process. And it turned out it was for Nestle Toll House's national marketing campaign called Bake Some Good.
Okay.
And what is wild about it, and this is what I think is so fun about the creativity aspect that you were saying, is I went into this saying, like, there's no way in heck I'm getting this job, so I might as well be my fullest self, because I don't even live in Chicago. I lived in the suburbs at the time, so it's like, I'm never gonna see these people anyway. Yeah. So why not be myself? Yeah. And then I walked away, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks later, with the job.
You got it.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. And actually the woman I was sitting next to was one of so there were 6 of us bakers. And the entire premise of the campaign, it was called Nestle Toll House Bake Some Good. Okay. So every day for 3 months, we would bake for nonprofits, NGOs in Chicago, and then we would deliver them, and we would say thank you on behalf of Nestle Toll House.
Like you would hand deliver them.
Yeah, we would hand deliver. And what was cool is we could choose the charities, and we could choose the nonprofits that we would deliver, and we would say, Nestle Toll House wants to recognize you for all of the work that you do. And it was just so cool. I got to meet the coolest people. I got to bake for some really neat organizations that were close to my heart. Yeah. And it was really neat. And I did it alongside like 6 other bakers. Okay. And so not only did you bake cool food and get to distribute it in a really cool way, this says Guinness World Record on it. Wait. This is not just like a participation trophy. You earned a Guinness World Record doing this. Yeah. Tell me more about that. Okay. So after the 90 days, to kind of do some sort of capstone for giving back to the local Chicago community, they were like, hey, by the way, we're going to do a world record. And I was like, what? Okay. And so basically it was just, they had, the team behind the scenes had been planning this for weeks. And we baked for 26 hours straight. Oh my gosh. And there's a whole bunch of rules when when Guinness rolls into town. So when you were doing anything with food, it needs to be donated to charity. Okay. They send adjudicators with clipboards, and they're walking around making sure that you are following the rules, because they can disqualify you if you're not following some of the rules. And Nestle Toll House, they just had so much fun. They brought in DJs from radio stations. So at like 2 a.m, they had like a DJ come like spin tunes, when we're like exhausted and, like trying to make cookies. But it was so cool. And the cookies that we actually baked went out for Meals on Wheels that day. That's amazing. Which was really cool. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so you were just like cranking out batch after batch? Yeah, so one of the rules is that the oven could never be empty. And they had to bring in extra ovens. Wow. So I think I had like 2 or 3 ovens that I was managing. Did you have to you had to carefully be like, wait, as I pull this one out, I have to start putting another one in? Yeah. Yeah. So there was no like slouching or resting. I actually had a runner who would go and get like the flour, the sugar when I was getting low, because I just didn't have time. Yeah. And I was just. Yes. Wow. Yeah. I think to my knowledge, you're the only Guinness World Record holder I know. Well, so, honored. Yeah, I have been beat, so I am a former. Okay. But maybe I'll come out and retire. Hey, I don't know. That wasn't. I think that's actually a really interesting point. Is to have once held a world record, and then to have your record beaten. Did that change the way that you felt about it? No, not at all. It never takes away the power of the accomplishment. Yes, I love that. Yeah, because you can still point to that time and indicate what a feat that was and the memories of everything that you did and sure, let people beat it. Okay, great. Yeah. Well, and kind of along those lines, when we accomplish things in life, I think I've finally gotten to this stage in my life where I'm like, this is just a season that I'm doing this. And it's okay if, for example, I'm doing water aerobics right now. Yes. I just became certified to be an instructor. So cool. Gonna be teaching a class. Yes. And I'm like, this is what I'm doing right now. And I know that it's not gonna be my whole life. or maybe it will be, but it'll just be a season, and that's okay. Like doing the Guinness World Record, that was a season. It doesn't take away its power. It doesn't take away the like crying over, cookie dough that happened when my cookie dough turned out wrong or something like that. It doesn't take away that power, but it just like almost increases the like nostalgia when you look back on it, like, oh, I remember, I lived out in the suburbs at the time, and I had to come in every day to the city. So I would get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. I was taking the train
Sit on 290 for 2 hours or something?
Well, I would, BNSF, I was on that Metro. And then I was working a full-time job at the same time I was doing this. So I was doing like, 60, 70 hours a week. And it was like, you can do anything for a small amount of time. That's why I kept telling myself, I was like, you can do this. It's 3 months.
That's great. Yeah, so. And you did.
Yeah.
Okay, I definitely want to come back to the water aerobics thing in a second. But before that, just one more point on this idea of records being beaten.
Yeah.
It makes me think of how, in a lot of ways, this is the beauty of human creativity and progress in general. So many ideas that get that really hit and become meaningful are modifications of what has come before and taking the successes of others and not diminishing what they've done, but then taking it further.
Adding a Sarah Sparkle or adding a Mike Sparkle.
Yeah, exactly. And and that is like, I'm sure that like us in like sports and some other realms, like having your record beaten might be really devastating in some ways, and humbling.
Yeah.
And I haven't been in that position, so where I have set a record and had somebody else beat it, just to be clear. But that feels playful in a way to celebrate the idea of progressing beyond what has been come before, and exploring entirely new territory, setting a new record, and hoping that someday somebody else is going to beat that record.
Yeah,
for the sake of the greater good.
It's almost like celebrating the impermanence of it, in a way.
Oh, interesting. Celebrating the impermanence.
Yeah.
That speaks to the seasonality you were talking about as well.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I like that idea a lot. Okay, and the other thing that I want to come back to is you're a baker.
Yes.
How did you become a baker? How did you get into baking?
Oh, okay. Basically, my grandma taught me how to bake. My grandma and my mom. And I'll send you a little picture. There's a picture of me, and I have like little pigtails, and I have my apron, and I'm like ready to make cookies.
Yes.
But yeah, I learned at a very young age.
Okay.
And I learned to cook and to bake, which is fun because people usually, when I tell them I like to cook and bake, they're like, oh, do you like one better than the other? And it's like, well, I like to bake because I do like the structure of it. Like you cannot just improv the amount of yeast or like the amount of baking soda. You know, it is like very structured. It truly is a science.
Yeah.
But then I love to cook because it's like very organic, and you can just add a little of this and a little of that. And so it's almost why I like marketing, which is what I do. It's like you've got the structure, the analytics, the like planning and processing, and then you've got this like wild side that's like, how big can I take this idea?
Yeah.
And so
the blending of art and science.
Yeah.
The science has to be sound for it to work, but there's room for creativity still, and finding the right balance between art and science. Yeah. Makes really amazing things when it's done right.
Yeah, and when I first started cooking, my cooking style has changed completely.
Really?
Yeah, I had to follow a recipe to a T, and then maybe I would add in like a little dash of crushed red pepper or something. Yeah. And then I got to a point, and this was actually right around the time that I started hanging out with a friend group, where I was like, Sarah, you've been cooking like your whole life. What if you just trusted yourself? And what if you just were okay to make a mistake here and there? And then I feel like my style really changed, and that's where it just became, this needs a little acid, this needs a little salt, this needs a little heat, and that kind of like spontaneous creation as I'm cooking versus like the very rigid, I need to do this, and it needs to come out of the oven at 18 minutes, you know? I think every baker goes through the rite of passage where you like mix up the sugar and the salt, and then you like mix up the baking powder and whatever. But it was just always something I loved doing. Yeah. And I obviously fell away from it a little bit in college. You don't really have like the tools. But then afterwards I was like, man, I really like doing this. But I am like, I like to bake cookies. I like to bake cakes. Like, don't make me laminate like anything for some sort of croissant. No. I'm like, pies are not really my specialty, but like cookies are. So I actually made some cookies.
Okay, I've been sitting here waiting for the chance to try this. So you have made some cookies. I can't wait to try these. Okay. Tell me about these.
Okay, so these are, I don't even know what I technically have called them. I think they're just like peanut butter and jelly cookies. Okay. So I actually entered this contest a couple years ago called Chicago's Best Baker. And you have to cook, like, of the 7 categories, you have to cook 5.
Okay.
And I was like, I can do gluten-free. And so I signed up for gluten-free, and then I was like, what do I do? Mm-hmm. I've never cooked gluten-free ever. I love carbs. Like, I don't know what to do. And I found this cookie recipe, and it was for these peanut butter cookies. These peanut butter cookies only have 3 ingredients.
Really?
Peanut butter, sugar, and an egg. That's
my gosh.
And so I was like, what if, actually this really speaks to this idea of play. I was like, what if I could do something beyond just doing a cookie? I was like, what goes well with peanut butter? It's like, I thought in my childhood, it's like jelly, peanut butter and jelly. I grew up on peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if I made the jam too that goes in here? And so these are peanut butter and jelly cookies. This is with a homemade blueberry jam.
Oh my, blueberry.
Yeah, this one is blueberry.
I mean,
you could do raspberry, you could do, you know, whatever your heart desires, but these are blueberry. Here, I'll give you a Snoopy napkin.
Thank you. I love the Snoopy napkin. Okay, this looks great. Oh my gosh.
Does it taste like actual peanut butter and jelly?
It's so rich.
Oh my gosh.
But balanced. And like it feels like a meal in a great way.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, oh yeah, I can just, this is lunch today.
I love it.
This is so good. Are there any other dishes you've made or that have a story to them that you can share?
Okay, so something else that I did for this contest was like a coriander turmeric focaccia.
Whoa.
Which I had never done bread. And I was like, it was a category that I signed up for. And then I was like, oh no, I was not one of the people who hopped on the sourdough starter during the pandemic. And so I was like, what is the easiest bread I can make? And I was like, focaccia. Okay. I love everything having to do with Italy. And I was like, okay, how can I make this mine? How can I truly own this? And at the time, Charity and I were doing a garden and she was growing coriander berries. And I was like, what if I did an Indian twist to it? And so added turmeric, added cilantro, added fresh coriander berries. And just created amazing. This like, this focaccia that was so good. And then I paired it with a mango chutney.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a tie back to my roots of being from India.
Yes. I mean, first of all, it sounds delicious. Yeah. And what a cool way to honor your heritage. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your identity as an Indian woman?
Yeah. I am internationally adopted. So I was born, and in adoption speak, it's transracial and transnational. So I was adopted internationally, and then I was raised in a family that had a different ethnic background than my own. So I was raised by a single Caucasian ginger, and my mom, and it was really interesting. You know, I think looking back on it now, you start to realize things. So, for example, a lot of my childhood, I was told, like, you're special. I was raised in a very religious Christian environment. It's like, you're special. This was like the path that God chose for you and things like that. And
being adopted was
being adopted. And having a second chance at life. Having a second chance at life. I was in the orphanage. I had bowed legs. I was severely malnourished. I was dying. I had tuberculosis. Actually came to the U.S. with tuberculosis and was treated. And so people would be like, you're a miracle, you know? And I still think that I'm a miracle. I think we're all miracles.
Yes.
But kind of like looking back on it, it puts a lot of pressure on like, how do you show up with this weight of expectation, maybe? And so that has been something that I have kind of like grappled with, and I think still do. Something also that's really interesting is this idea of how do I make something of my life. And like when I grew up, I wanted to be like 5 or 6 different things. I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to do all these things. And, you know, I think as children, it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, what's that one thing you want to do? Which I think is great. It gives you that vision. But it's also interesting because it's like, for me personally, I feel like I'm doing all these things outside of my job. And like my job is wonderful and I love it. And I am also doing all these cool things. I'm baking, I'm cooking, I'm, you know, teaching aerobics. I, you know, had my singing moment and got to tour Italy and the things like that. You know, it's like, it's so cool. Let me come back to what you were asking about my childhood. Something that I have really struggled with, and I think probably a lot earlier on in my journey, is what does it mean to be a woman of color raised in a white environment, raised by people who didn't look like me? I didn't have, like, I think I rarely had any Indian friends growing up, maybe a couple. Like, what does that look like and how do I define diversity? And it wasn't until in my 20s where I was like, wow, I have been raised under such a white lens. Like all of the authors, all of the music I listened to, all of my exposure was through this like white privilege. And so I've spent a lot of time like diving into that. And also like, what is my relationship to India now? You know, I was internationally adopted when I was 2 years old. I was not talking, I was not walking, but I am Indian.
Absolutely.
And so what does that complicated relationship look like? And I don't think that's an answer that I will ever really have. You know, I think it changes in its seasons. But
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I mean, it's really, really powerful. And I'm hearing this, the weight of expectation. There's sort of this almost sense of like you're indebted because like you've been rescued and now you owe us almost. I mean, I'm sure that's painting it in a harsh light, but also how cool that you can now ask that question. What is my identity? What's my relationship to my motherland? And you have autonomy in that, and you have freedom to shape that relationship now. And to your point about it being seasonal, that may look, sometimes it may be like, oh, I'm just interested in learning. I want to, and maybe you get to go and visit, and you visit. I mean, India is a massive country, one of the largest countries in the world. Of course, you could like, it would take many, many visits to see all the different sides of India. But you can now take that into your own hands, and you can make that as serious and playful as you want it to be. And so, have you been to India?
No, I haven't. I've wanted to go back. I think honestly, something that I think about is just, what if I go there and I don't feel anything?
Interesting.
And like that feels really scary to me. Like, what if I go and it doesn't mean anything?
Wow. What would be a marker of whether or not it meant something?
I think just like feeling it in my soul and feeling like I'm here, and this sense of, I don't know. I think it's such it's so complicated because gratitude doesn't feel like the right word. Because there's so much grief in adoption, right, for a family. Joy also doesn't feel like the right word because of that grief. I want to like hold space for like grief and joy happening simultaneously. And so I think it's just a feeling of like exhaling and like, I'm here and now what? And I think that's what's scary. It's like, what if I get there and I just am numb? Wow. I go into like, I don't know, fight or flight. I don't know if that's the right thing.
Or like, it's like almost like it doesn't feel like your own. Okay.
Which is very fair. I mean, that could happen. You know, because I have no recollection.
Of course.
Other than like videos and pictures.
Well, and I think many people could experience that in visiting wherever, you know, their ethnic heritage is from. But yours is a little more potent because you were born there and you lived there. Yeah. I understand that is quite complex.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think you will ever go?
Yeah, I would like to. I like to go, and I like to do some good while I'm there as well. I haven't figured out like what that looks like, but
maybe some baking.
Maybe some baking.
That could be a pretty good way to,
Yeah.
I think you could make some friends pretty quickly doing that.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is when I did the Nestle project, we got to choose the different organizations we wanted to bake for. And I baked for the Cradle here.
Okay, I don't know that organization.
Oh, the Cradle is an adoption kind of agency. It's actually where I think Brad
Our friend's
adopted.
Brad, Brad Nicole, yeah.
But yeah, it's adoption agency here, and we got to go, and I got to thank the workers for everything that they did, and that was really powerful because I was like, oh, I'm on the other side, and like I get to all of these people who are making dreams happen, and like also holding that grief of like, you know, and facilitating that, and facilitating families coming together. So
those are indeed miracles. You know, to use that language that you referenced earlier.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so powerful. I could talk about that all day. I love it. But yeah, your baking is incredible, and it's so cool how your background and story shapes that. I definitely want to try some more of your Indian cooking as well.
Oh my gosh, I just made this aloo gobi recipe, which is like potatoes and cauliflower, and it is so good. Oof. It is so good. I'll bring it to potluck.
Yeah, please.
Oh yeah, I've made it like 2 or 3 weeks in a row.
Yes. And I hope that when I'm not saying if, I'm going to say when you visit India, I hope that you are able to find a way to make it your own, much like with like you have done with your baking, and you know, that you could blend art and science somehow in the way that you approach that, and that you find that sense of home and meaningful connection whenever that happens. So,
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, or do you want to respond to that?
I was
gonna make a slight pivot.
No, otherwise I'll cry.
That's totally fine. But I wanted to pivot back to this seems trivial in comparison, but I think there's still a lot of beauty and depth in this as well. Water aerobics.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to talk to you about water aerobics.
Okay, I want to talk about this because you mentioned this briefly, and I know you've been so excited about this lately. And this is a new expression of creativity and community building for you. I have never done water aerobics.
Okay.
I have vague perceptions of what that is.
Okay.
Tell me all about it.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Where do I start? All right. Water aerobics is okay. So there's a lot of people confuse water aerobics with, aqua aerobics with aqua Zumba.
Aqua Zumba.
So like Zumba, like you're dancing on land, right? The idea is like you would just transfer that to the water and you'd be dancing in the water.
You're like a true seafarer now to be referencing, oh, you know, those things you do on land.
on land versus water. It does make me sound like a sailor. You know what? I'll take it. Yeah. But aqua aerobics is truly like dedicated intervals of movement. So you are punching the water, you're doing, you know, like leg lifts or high knees. And because of there's no gravity in the water, you're able to really work and improve your range of motion, work like all of your muscles just in different ways that you wouldn't be able to do on land.
Yes.
And when you get out of the pool, it's just like you feel so much stronger. And like, so I took my first aqua aerobics class last year. Okay. And I went and I was like, I love this. Yeah. I was the youngest person there, which is common in aqua aerobics. It does skew towards an older audience. And that was actually a pattern that I noticed where it was like, okay, I'm the youngest person in the room. Music choice isn't, you know, what I would choose. And then also the sense of community just wasn't as vibrant as I was like hoping it would be, but left feeling so strong. And I've had a history of car accidents, of neck injuries. Whoa. I tore my ACL in high school doing a round off back handspring.
Were you a cheerleader?
No, I this was in my gym class. Oh, okay. I went to private school.
Oh, okay. Gym's a little different. So
we did like acrobatics in private
school.
And we were like,
Understood.
it was actually the day that I learned how to master a round off back handspring, and no one got to see it because I tore my ACL. Anyway, that's a side story. But, you know, that means that when I'm doing a lot of running or even like yoga can be really hard on my neck and shoulders. And so I have to be really careful. I'd find myself taking a leave, you know, for a couple of days afterwards because it was just so intense. And you don't have that in the water because you are weightless. And so I'm able to like increase my range of movement and like really get in and work all of these different muscles. And you just leave feeling so strong. Also very hungry, but very strong.
Hungry for a peanut butter and jelly cookie.
Yes, yeah. I was talking with my boyfriend Andres, and he's like, hey, my friend Becca is a trainer. Why don't you talk to her? And so talked to Becca about it. And she's like, you should teach. And I was so terrified that I was like, okay.
You were terrified, so you said yes?
Well,
That's great.
Well, because it's like, I don't know anything about the fitness world.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's different if it's like in your wheelhouse and you're like, oh yeah, I can like learn. I know nothing about like teaching fitness, like cueing, anything. And then I was like, what if I did just do this?
Yeah.
Like, why not? Like, see where it takes me, see what I can learn, have that openness, that curiosity, and just see what happens. And I'm officially certified.
Okay.
I am going to be teaching here in a couple weeks.
And I bet the music is going to be, you know, on point.
Let me tell you about my music choice. The name of my class is called Aquafit Power Pop Splash.
Yes.
And it is,
sign me up.
Yeah, it's targeted for women ages 25 to 35, but all are welcome.
Okay, I'm none of the things you just listed. But.
I'm not the age group either. It's okay. But it's set to iconic female like pop anthems.
Awesome.
So it's like Dua Lipa, Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato.
Yeah.
And we're doing it to the beat. We're like punching to the beat.
Good.
We're marching to the beat. We're doing all these things. And I just kind of created the class that I wanted. Yeah. That I didn't see that existed.
Absolutely.
And so I'm really excited about it.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay. I mean, first of all, there's so many good things in that. You created what you didn't see, and that there was a niche that needed to be filled, and in appealing to a younger audience, and the music that makes you want to do that, and like, I mean, whatever. It's probably like the music that you're like when you were trying out somebody else's class, you're like, you know what, I really wish I was listening to, and then you just made it happen. But I don't want to miss the fact that you were terrified and you said yes. Yeah. That's not how most people react. I think that is really cool. And that you were basically saying, you know, I'm paraphrasing what I heard, but what's the worst that could happen? Yeah. So
someone says no, which I'd be like, fair.
Yeah.
If they were like, you know, during your audition, like, Sarah, you really need to work on this. I'm like, yeah, I do.
But like, I mean, this goes back to what you were saying in the beginning. Like, there is that vulnerability in putting something out there. And like, so if you're like, I'm going to say yes, I'm going to create a class that other people can attend. We'll see how it goes. And you did it, and you're falling in love with it. Yeah. Because you said yes, even though it was uncertain. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I'm not a woman who's 25 to 35. But if someone is, and they wanted to partake your class.
Honestly, anyone can come to my class.
Okay. So listen, world, if you're in Chicago and you want to take an aqua aerobics class, you need to do what?
Reach out to me.
Okay.
On Instagram. It's probably the best.
All right.
Sarah
Make sure you're
Corley.
tagged. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm just excited to bring like a next generation level energy to it.
Yeah. It sounds amazing, legitimately. And I think my knees would be less sore than when I try running.
Yeah. And honestly, I have like so many spin-off ideas. I'm like, oh man, I could do like aquafit rap affirmations. Do you remember Abel Hart? He was like that. I sent it a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
He was like, he like raps like manifestations. I'm like, I want to do aquafit to that. Like we're awesome. Manifesting and working out, and like the endorphins are flowing. Like,
well, you could build out a whole suite of different genres. Yeah. And maybe you've got aquafit set to Enya. And it's just like
or Noco Flow.
Yeah, why not?
I love it. Yeah.
So I mean, incredible. I mean, well, it's fitness, it's creativity, it's community. So you really are like, what you said as a kid, like, I wanted to be all these things at once.
Yeah.
You're doing it. Like,
yeah. And you shouldn't limit yourself to one thing.
Yeah.
You should be open and
Yeah.
receptive. Actually, this is something I wanted to mention to you is, so every time I travel, I just feel so alive when I come back and I'm like, oh, I have a fresh new perspective. And I was thinking, like, why is this? Like, why do people get the travel bug and they're just like always wanting to travel? And I think it's because when you travel, you have to be curious and open to whatever happens, right? Like, planes delayed. You lose, an important piece of documentation. The restaurant you want to go to is closed. There's weather, whatever.
Yeah.
And you have to be so present. You have to be so in the moment that you learn kind of just how to flow through that.
Yes.
And I think that that's really important, obviously, in life. And when you want to do so many things, it's like, okay, yeah, this is this season, and I'm gonna flow to this season, and I'm gonna do this, and like. Yeah.
That's really profound.
Yeah.
Was there a particular trip where some of that really came to life?
Great question. Yeah, Mexico. I recently went to Mexico. That definitely happened. I don't speak Spanish. And luckily my boyfriend does.
Yeah.
But, I'm such a yapper. It was so hard for me in Mexico to sit there and be like, I just trust someone else to just like do the conversation. I'm just so used to just that, know.
It's a great reminder to have empathy for people who are in a place and not speaking their first language. Like, there is in this wonderful international city that we live in, there's so many people who English is not their first language. And I'm just hearing that and I'm like, that's a great reminder that like, it is hard to do that, and give some people some grace if people are doing their best with a language in any capacity.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I was a leader of Asians at, so it's kind of like a community resource group at my company, and we have a branch in Singapore, like a hub in Singapore in the Philippines, and our company brings everyone together. We have team bonding, and you get to like really see everyone in person. And I remember sitting down next to Denmark, and he's like eating a cheeseburger, and he's just like, oh. And I was like, hey, how's it going? He's like, I'm so tired because I'm just speaking in English and it's my second language. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, it was just such a click of, like, I forget. Yeah. We forget.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and absolutely. Like, so that's a great reminder. And I don't speak another language, in any fluency. So that's, I can't even fully know what that fatigue is like. Yeah. But I mean, this feels like I'm shoehorning this in a little bit, but like, how cool the power of play and connection in other ways, where sometimes there's an opportunity to connect with people beyond language or without language.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so when I was in Mexico, like I said, didn't speak any English, but I went to this woman's fruit stand, and we just connected in such a way, and I could not say anything to her other than like, I would like a fruit cup, and I would just point, and we just like had such a connection. I would go back every day, give her a hug. My boyfriend Andres would like kind of like translate for both of us. And the last day that I had to go, I was like, hey, I just want to let you know this is like my last time. Yeah. And she's like, well, I'm really old. Huh. And it was just like this moment of gratitude for like just the cobbling of a language we had put together of smiles and hugs and not understanding each other and realizing, oh, this might actually be the last time we see each other. Yeah. Wow. But it was just it's cobbling together a language and being so present and curious about other people's experiences. It transcends.
Yeah. Our friend Brad has said before, like, you can actually get pretty far with just big hand gestures, like
and a big smile.
Yeah, I'm paraphrasing how he said that, but
yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, that sounds really like an amazing connection that you had. And when you take that trip to India someday, maybe that there's going to be ways that you can connect beyond language, because there's multiple languages spoken across India, and you might find yourself in different parts that don't use the language you've even been practicing for a while and whatever, that you can connect through food, through play, through music, through physical activity, anything.
I love that.
There's connection that doesn't require language sometimes.
I love that.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so you've talked about so many different expressions of your creativity and the things that you're spending your time on and thinking about. I see play in all of it. I mean, that's why I wanted to talk to you.
Yeah.
How do you define play, Sarah?
Play is curiosity, it's creativity, it's being present, and it's being lighthearted, being open.
Yeah. Great. Concise and so powerful. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
It's been such a delight to chat with you.
Wonderful.
And I think I'm going to eat the rest of those cookies now.
Sounds great. Fair.
Thank you. Thanks.
I feel so privileged and grateful to have had this beautiful, sacred conversation with Sarah, and I hope you found as much meaning in it as I did. There's lots of good things to ponder here. You can learn more about Sarah on our website, defineplay.com, where you can also find a playlist of songs that Sarah put together that help her feel playful. If you enjoyed this conversation, please send it to somebody else who you think might enjoy it too. Also, please give us a subscribe. It helps us reach more people with these conversations, and it really helps us out a lot. So thank you for doing that on whatever platform that you are using this, listening or watching. We appreciate it so much. And we will catch you next time. This has been Define Play, and I'm Michael. Bye, friends.